Most people forget there's a nation at the bottom of Africa that once built nuclear bombs and then chose to give them up. That same nation, decades later, commands stealth fighters, attack helicopters, and submarines that patrol some of the world's toughest waters. This is South Africa, a country often seen as struggling with budgets, but quietly holding on to world-class power. While others downsized, South Africa built smarter. While others imported, it engineered its own. So how did a nation with a shrinking defense budget in 2025 manage to stay ahead of countries spending billions more? Because even with limited funds, it still flies Gripen fighter jets, operates submarines, and trains elite soldiers capable of missions far beyond the continent. Most of its neighbors can't even maintain what South Africa already has. Yet it keeps advancing. This isn't a story about money. It's a story about legacy, science, and survival. A story that proves you don't need to be rich to be ready. Stay till the end. Because the secret that keeps South Africa's military alive might redefine how small nations stay powerful. The world knows South Africa for its gold, its rugby, and its endless safaris. But behind that peaceful image lies a hidden legacy of power that few ever talk about. For decades, South Africa quietly built one of the strongest militaries in the Southern Hemisphere. Its navy patrols not one, but 3 oceans: the Atlantic, Indian, and Southern. And its air force, once fueled by innovation and isolation, rivaled NATO allies in both training and technology. While most nations looked at Africa and saw underdevelopment, South Africa was building jet fighters, submarines, and missiles, all at home. But few remember just how advanced it became, or why it needed to. Because this strength didn't rise from ambition, it rose from fear and survival. To understand that power, we must return to a divided past. In 1994, as the old system of apartheid collapsed, South Africa faced a challenge unlike any other. 2 worlds, the apartheid military and the liberation fighters who fought against it, had to become one army. Enemies who once met on the battlefield now stood side by side, wearing the same uniform. It was one of the toughest military integrations in modern history. Out of that tension, the South African National Defence Force, SANDF, was born. A force made from 8 separate movements, each with its own story, scars, and style of war. Many feared it would collapse into chaos. Instead, it became a symbol of transformation, showing that unity could grow even from conflict. But unity alone wasn't enough. To survive, South Africa needed technology, strategy, and power, not just peace. And that answer came 5 years later. In 1999, South Africa signed what became known as the Strategic Defense Package, a deal that changed its military forever. For the first time in modern history, Africa gained access to a blue water navy and a supersonic air force. Through this deal, South Africa acquired Gripen fighter jets, Hawk trainers, German-built submarines, and advanced frigates, weapons that instantly placed it decades ahead of its neighbors. To the world, it looked like simple rearmament, but inside the country, it was something more, a rebirth after years of isolation and restriction. The deal turned South Africa from a regional player into a continental powerhouse, capable of striking, defending, and projecting power far beyond its shores. Yet one mystery remained. Where did this level of technology and skill truly come from? The secret lies in a past the world tries to forget. By the early 2000s, South Africa had built a military few in Africa could match. Its Gripen fighter jets could fly across the continent with precision and speed. Its German-made submarines roamed the Atlantic depths, watching over sea lanes no one else could reach. For a nation of its size, this was unheard of. Superpower-level hardware in the hands of a developing country. Each system became part of a new identity, one of quiet strength and sharp readiness. While the world looked north for power, Africa's southern tip had become its gatekeeper. But this kind of capability didn't appear overnight. It wasn't luck. It was the result of decades of secret work buried beneath history. Because this modern power had roots in something older and darker. What was South Africa hiding during the Cold War? Long before 1994, deep inside hidden bunkers, South Africa built something no one expected: 6 nuclear bombs. It was a secret race for power during the Cold War, driven by fear and isolation. But then, South Africa made history. It became the only nation to build nuclear weapons, and then destroy them voluntarily. The world called it disarmament. In truth, it was transformation. was transferred because the same scientists, engineers, and labs that once built warheads didn't disappear. They adapted. That knowledge became the foundation of South Africa's defense technology. From advanced missile systems to cutting-edge aerospace design, the nuclear era ended, but the science behind it kept evolving, quietly, intelligently, and entirely at home. So if it no longer built bombs, what exactly did that science create instead? The answer lies in machines born from African soil. During the dark years of embargoes, when no country would sell it weapons, South Africa decided to build its own. Engineers worked in secret factories, designing war machines from scratch. Out of that isolation came the Rooivalk attack helicopter, the G5 artillery gun, and the Umkhonto missile system, all homegrown and years ahead of their time. Each one was a symbol of self-reliance, proof that Africa could invent, not just import. While the world tried to weaken it, South Africa became smarter, faster, and more capable. Its scientists learned to create from nothing, to turn scarcity into strength. But peace brought a new kind of test. Without war, could that same spirit of invention survive in democracy? The Rooivalk, South Africa's pride of the skies, still holds that answer. The Rooivalk helicopter stands as a symbol of what African engineering can achieve, the only indigenous attack helicopter ever built on the continent. It flies with precision, built from South African metal, design, and determination. Beside it stands the G6 artillery system, a massive, six-wheeled cannon that can hit targets over 40 kilometers away, still one of the longest-range guns in the world. Together, they proved a simple truth. Brilliance doesn't need billion-dollar budgets. It just needs vision and courage. But even genius can't run on empty. These machines were built from passion, not profit, and passion needs support to survive. When funding slowed and priorities shifted, innovation began to fade. And that's when South Africa faced its toughest question yet. What happens when the money dries up? By 2024, South Africa's defense budget had fallen to just $2.8 billion, its lowest level in decades. In bases across the country, planes sat grounded, ships stayed docked, and morale sank. 4 straight years of budget cuts forced the military to shrink, delay training, and cannibalize parts just to stay operational. For a moment, it looked like the proud SANDF, once Africa's most advanced force, might collapse under its own weight. But somehow, it didn't. Against all odds, the arsenal survived, even if just barely. It wasn't money that kept it alive. It was experience, discipline, and a deep belief in duty. And that belief would soon be tested again, not at home, but in the heart of Africa's most dangerous conflict, because the Congo War held the answer. In the jungles of the eastern Congo, South African soldiers found themselves fighting one of the hardest wars of their generation. As part of the SAMI-DRC peacekeeping mission, they faced ambushes, harsh terrain, and enemies armed to the teeth. In 2025, several battles turned brutal, with heavy losses and limited support. They fought without full resources, without enough supplies, sometimes even without air cover. Yet they never retreated. Every clash became a lesson in survival. Every loss a reminder of what true strength costs. What the world saw as a peace mission became a training ground for courage and leadership. Because in those muddy fields, South Africa's army learned lessons no academy could ever teach. But soldiers weren't alone in that fight. Look to the skies. They tell the real story. By 2024, South Africa's proud Gripen fighter fleet was hanging by a thread. Out of the original squadrons, only a handful of jets were still flying regular missions. Thanks to Saab's support deal, the Air Force managed to keep the program alive, just enough to stay in the sky. In hangars across the country, technicians worked miracles, rebuilding engines with limited parts and keeping systems running through sheer skill. The problem wasn't ability, it was funding. The pilots still trained, the mechanics still believed, but the money that powered their dreams was gone. And yet, the spirit never faded. The skill never died. Only the funding did. While the air arm struggled to breathe, another branch quietly thrived. Because beneath the waves, South Africa's Navy remained Africa's strongest. South Africa's MECO. A 200 Valor-class frigates still lead the continent's seas. Fast, modern, and deadly accurate. Beneath them, submarines like the SAS Mantha Tisi and Charlotte Maxeki glide through the Atlantic and Indian Oceans, giving South Africa unmatched stealth reach. Even with limited budgets, its sailors train relentlessly, keeping discipline and precision that few navies in Africa can match. Their quiet excellence didn't go unnoticed. Across the ocean, India began watching closely, and then collaborating. Because in 2025, a new partnership rose from those deep waters. The answer surfaced in August 2025. On the ground, South Africa's army still rides into action with Oliphant tanks and Ratel infantry vehicles, machines older than many of their crews. The planned Badger IFV, meant to replace them, was scaled back as budgets tightened. But instead of stopping, soldiers kept those vehicles alive with upgrades, repairs, and pure determination. Progress didn't come from new machines. It came from adapting old ones to modern wars. Yet every upgrade has its limit. Steel can last only so long before it bends. In August 2025, India stepped in to help South Africa's Navy when its submarine rescue systems were nearing collapse. Indian engineers certified and upgraded the systems, proving that two nations could share skill, not just sea lanes. It was a rare moment of South-South defense partnership, built on respect rather than rivalry. With India's support, South Africa's submarine fleet returned to full readiness, once again guarding the deep waters around the continent. But even the best partnerships can't fix every weakness. So what really keeps South Africa's military on another level? South Africa's military doesn't rely on size. It relies on skill. From medevac drills to convoy escorts, every mission runs with exact precision. Its soldiers, sailors, and pilots trained to do more with less, turning discipline into their strongest weapon. While others count numbers, South Africa counts expertise. And that's what keeps it standing. Each operation shows that quality beats quantity, even when resources run thin. But skill alone has limits. To last, power must find renewal. A rebirth that turns endurance into evolution. And that final answer is coming, with rebirth. By October 2025, the South African National Defence Force, SANDF, stands bruised but unbroken. Its ships may age, its aircraft may rest more than they fly, but its spirit has never dimmed. It still commands submarines that guard the oceans, attack helicopters that patrol the skies, and long-range artillery that can strike beyond horizons. And deep within its ranks, special forces trained in the toughest terrains of Africa still carry the same quiet excellence that once defined the nation's power. South Africa isn't a fading force, it's a sleeping one, waiting for its next awakening. Analysts say the upcoming budget cycle could spark that rebirth, unlocking upgrades, new partnerships, and a modern defense plan fit for a new era. But even if funding returns, money was never what kept it alive. The SANDF's survival came from something deeper, a secret hidden in its history, built from decades of innovation, resilience, and willpower. Because when every advantage was taken away, South Africa created its own. It stood when it shouldn't have. It endured when it couldn't afford to. And now, it stands on the edge of a new beginning. South Africa's true power was never its weapons. It was its heritage of invention. Long before budgets fell and aid disappeared, this nation learned how to build when no one else would help. The same engineers who once designed nuclear bombs now shape Gripen jets, missiles, and submarines that still guard its shores. That legacy of science and skill kept the country strong even when the money ran out. They turned embargoes into innovation, poverty into precision, and limits into lessons the world is only now beginning to understand. What others saw as isolation, South Africa turned into independence. Because real strength doesn't come from budgets or numbers. It comes from brilliance and willpower. The world forgot South Africa's power, mistaking silence for weakness. But even in the shadows, it never stopped building. Every submarine that sails and every pilot that trains carries that same spirit, the will to rise, even when no one is watching. In 2025, South Africa stands as living proof that a nation's mind can be mightier than its money. At the tip of Africa, a quiet force still stands, defined not by its size, but by its survival and skill. For decades, South Africa's military has faced shrinking budgets, fading fleets, and global doubt. Yet it endures, not through wealth, but through wisdom, training, and an unbreakable heritage of innovation. Even in decline, it proves that a nation's true strength lies in its people, not its pockets. From engineers who built world-class machines to soldiers who never stopped serving, this story reminds us that legacy and invention can keep nations alive long after the funding fades. If you love discovering the hidden powers quietly shaping our world, subscribe now and join us for the next global story that might just change how you see power itself. Tell us below, Can South Africa rise again, or has it already surpassed the limits of its size?